This is an audio test, testing for the board meeting on 7/23/20. Test 1, 2, 3.
Morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. Funny noises.
Yeah, usually.
We will start the meeting here in a minute. We're glad that you all are here, and we hope we have some people tuning in today. We've had a lot of interest in this meeting this day.
Having a technical issue just for a second here.
Oh, my bad, sorry.
You ready?
Yes.
So we're going to start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, if everybody would stand, please. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Since this is a virtual meeting, I'm required to monitor the following statement. The Cleveland City School Board of Education will hold a meeting electronically pursuant to Executive Order 51 issued on Monday, glasses would be good, June 29th by Governor Bill Lee. The electronic meeting is necessary to protect public health, safety, and welfare in light of the coronavirus. Members of the public may attend and listen to the meeting through access of the video, and there's a link that's on our webpage, Cleveland City Schools, and it will link you right up to this meeting. So Julie, if you would take the roll, please, of people present.
Tom Cloud,
Present.
Charlie Cogdell,
Present.
Carolyn Ingram,
Here.
Krista McKay. Here. Peggy Pesterfield,
Here.
Don Robinson.
Here. Okay. We have the consent agenda, which is approval of the agendas today and approval of the minutes of the July 7th board meeting. I need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second, Tom and Peggy.
Okay.
Call the roll, please.
Tom,
Yes.
Peggy,
Yes.
Carolyn,
Yes.
Krista,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Charlie.
Yes.
We're going to move to the regular agenda, and I want to thank you all for being here on short notice. I know you didn't get the notice about this till Monday or Tuesday, but we felt it really important to move quickly because school and teachers are going to be back in the buildings, and as we said at the very start, this plan was going to be very fluid, and it's so fluid that we needed to meet. So thank you for dropping your plans today and being here. I appreciate that, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Dyer.
Okay, well, first of all, good morning. It's not good afternoon yet, but good morning. It's good to see all of you in person. I know Steve could not be here today, so good to see our board members sitting in a room, and we're all wearing our mask and social distancing the best we can in here today. As you know, things continue to change in dealing with COVID-19. We have a very solid plan that was approved by the board, but we said at that meeting, this is subject to change based on new information, new data, and keeping up with things as we go. So that's where we are today. We wanted to bring a couple of updates to you and explain to you and also to those watching in the community about what we're requesting to do. So today we're going to bring that to you and give you some just general updates as well as we go. So if we can go to the presentation, Dr. Raper, that'd be great. And I wanted to start off with just a brief point of levity to start with, and my sister actually sent this to me, and for those who maybe can't see this, there's a problem that says solve each problem, and it's a word problem that probably a first or second grader did. It says there are 26 kids at the beach, then 37 more kids come. How many kids are at the beach now? And the answer was written in, too many for COVID-19. So, you know, it is a joke, but it's not a joke at the same time. You know, it's truthful that we are seeing large congregations of people and all those kind of issues that we've seen on TV, and we're not here to discuss that today, but I thought that was kind of a good segue into a more serious topic that we're going to jump into next. So we can go to the next screen here. Just as a reminder, we're ready for back to school. But back to school is much more than COVID-19. While we're dealing with COVID-19, our departments are still extremely busy, and principals are extremely busy, and leaders extremely busy, just getting ready for our normal routine of things that are done at the beginning of the school system. And I want to just take a moment to just remind us of all those kind of things that have to be done. So you're dealing with professional development. You know, that's a very important part for our teachers as we get ready to come back, and staff in general. We're rolling out our strategic plan. You know, you guys approved that at the end of last school year. It's now time to implement year one. And yeah, we had to change that plan from where we were this time last year and thinking about that to the new realities of 2019-20. So that plan is going to be rolled out. We're dealing with social and emotional awareness. We're also dealing with equity issues. We all know and very aware of what's going on in the world around us in the United States, dealing with everything from monuments to everything else, dealing with equity. So we're going to be tackling those kind of issues and make sure our staff is ready and prepared for that. And so much else. And if you go to the next screen, these are just examples of things that we're going to be talking about as we get into professional development this year. These are just some of the things. Virtual convocation will be coming up. That's a change for us. You know, we didn't necessarily want to bring 900 people into one space at the beginning of the year like we've done in the past. So that'll be handled virtually. CKLA, our new language arts curriculum in K through 5. That training is ready to go. Capturing Kids' Hearts. We're bringing elementary into the fold now of Capturing Kids' Hearts, and we want to make sure those teachers and staff are ready for that as we get ready to go into the school year. Of course, COVID-19 updates, procedures will be that. Digital learning and technology. We want to make sure everyone is up to speed on what we need to be doing as far as the digital world we're living in right now in this room, but also in the classrooms as we go forward. Google Classroom, equity in our schools and community. We're going to be holding parent-teacher individual orientation during part of our in-service and professional development week because we want to connect with each parent before students come back to school to make sure that they know what's going on and they understand they've heard from that child's teacher about what the plans are for that particular school and how things will operate. So that will be happening as well. Kindergarten screening, standards review, pacing charts. These are just a sample of the things that have to take place, on a yearly basis. But they're taking place this year on top of all the other COVID-19 things. So I just want to say thank you to all of our teams that are working so incredibly hard right now to make sure that we're prepared for back to school. That's from those working in the schools, the academic team, technology team, I mean, just everybody. I can't tell you how dedicated our staff is to making sure that we are ready for back to school. And I feel like we are ready for Monday.
Dr. Dyer, first of the week, I got several calls about in-service, staff development. And then last night, everybody got the email. And a couple of teachers called me, were speaking up for their each individual schools.
Sure.
And I never thought of it. You know, this is virtual, convocation is going to be virtual. And the teachers made some good points, I thought.
Well,
about the option to do it virtually.
And if I can,
Jeff and them have done a great
we do
job.
want to talk to that. And I will tell you, I have met with just about I have 2 principals to go. I'm meeting with all principals this week and just having a chance to talk to them about the culture of their school right now, where the temperature is of the environment there. And I pick up, there's some nervous energy about coming back. But I think the majority of our staff is ready to come back.
With the ones that called me were ready to come back.
Right.
They wanted to have the option. They could do it in their classroom and you can still.
I'm gonna let Dr. Elliott talk about it. So we've chatted a lot about this, and
I just thought their email last night was very good.
yeah,
At
and
least if we could hear what kind of precautions or.
exactly. That's what we want to talk about this morning. So I'm gonna let Dr. Elliott take over there, and then I'll pipe back in as well.
And again, it's something all summer we've been, working through and trying to figure out what's the best approach. And as we contracted with some of these groups like Capturing Kids' Hearts and CKLA back in the spring, and we were preparing for our PD, of course, we were aiming for this in-service week, and we had contracted with them. And with Capturing Kids' Hearts, that is a in-person situation discussion. It's very about social emotional. There's a lot of discussion about that. So when we started looking at it, Capturing Kids' Hearts says they cap it at 50. And so we were watching the guidelines of coming back together in a public location. Anything under 50 is kind of that guideline of meeting together. So we were monitoring that. And we were looking at CKH, Capturing Kids' Hearts, for an example, says that they like for you to meet off campus in a different location than your school building. And so we appreciate First Baptist has been really good about working with us on those kind of things. So throughout the summer, we were preparing to gather there and have that. Last week, we were in dialogue with First Baptist and we made the decision that we're not going to have those groups meet there, but move it into school buildings in our larger theater areas such as Blythe Bower Theater or Candies Creek Cherokee Room, and 4 different locations. Now, there are going to be, could be potentially up to 50 in that case, but we wanted to keep it under that. It would potentially be a couple of different staff school groups coming together, but it would be with the protocols such as definitely the temperature checks, things that are in the plan, staff wearing their masks, spraying of water. We also are saying that if you come in with your staff, that you sit on that side of the room with, the staff that you're going to be working with on a regular basis, and the other staff sit on the other part of the room, and those would be some of the protocols from that. That is the one, the one that has the most people coming together at any location, but it's still under that 50 number. The other occasions are up to possibly 25 teachers coming together and we put them again in our larger spaces in our schools, such as our first grade teachers, this CKLA training, coming together like in one of our larger schools and larger class or theaters and meeting maybe 25 in a room, but they would, again, temperatures, social distance, and masks. But we are monitoring that. That is next week, and then our staff development week is the following week, and each week. But that's the plan for next week, and that's the way we've been approaching it. But the complication, of course, being a larger crowd, definitely that requires anything over 50.
How hard would it be? I mean, 2 of the ladies were very uncomfortable. How hard would it be for them to do it from their classroom, do it virtually?
I think we put in the protocols in place, and I'll be just honest, I think we've got protocols in place to do this. We had administrative in-service on Monday. There's a lot of people there, but we were able to spread out. You're wearing your mask, you're with the people that were from your school, and that's kind of like it would be in a classroom setting. You're sticking with people that are part of your school in those groups. When you're doing the Capturing Kids' Hearts, there could be 2 schools in that Cherokee room, but that Cherokee room is huge. And you spread those out the most you can, and then you're sticking with people that are from your school as part of that. So, there are protocols in place. We're following those mitigation factors from the health department as far as doing these kind of gatherings. So we have really thought this out.
If one of them becomes sick and has to be quarantined, how would they be able to access the in-service programs?
Well, they're quarantined from home. I don't know if they can do like Capturing Kids' Hearts and those
I
kind of
don't
things.
think Capturing Kids' Hearts has a model where you can do that at this time.
No, that training requires you to be in a
Present.
group interacting with other people.
Now, some of our local sessions and those kind of things,
Right.
we could probably definitely be able to use
Right.
something such as Google Meet that our teachers and we are familiar with.
Right.
And bring them in right there.
Mhm.
But something that's coming from a group, an organization that's training such as Capturing
Right.
Kids' Hearts, it's going to be limited to be able to do it.
Will there be a makeup available at any time for them?
It just depends if we can work that out, and, there's a cost factor for Capturing Kids' Hearts coming back and things such as that, so it's not one of those things we can just say right now, there's a definite, but we would we would do our best to try it out.
Okay.
So that's not an option, they could do it from their classroom?
Not for everything.
I know there's
No.
the 2 I talked to are
Yeah,
very good teachers and they're concerned about it.
sure, well, I would say they're all good teachers,
Yeah.
and, but there are certain trainings that we have to do in person, and we want to do that, but we're gonna have all the protocols and procedures in place that we can. Now, we're gonna make reasonable efforts, we're gonna do those
Yeah.
mitigating factors that Brittany talked about. She said you may not be able to do all 20, but you try to do as many as you can, and that's what we're following. We're gonna do as best we can to follow those mitigation factors, but I can't say that we can do every single one of them every single day. That's part of what we're doing is making it ever
And
reasonable.
I don't know how many he was representing, but, the email last night was CCS teachers, so
Sure.
there's several concerned with it, I know that.
Yeah, well, I would say they also need to email us. I haven't seen this email personally, so,
Yeah.
Well, I think
No.
a couple have said they sent some emails, I don't know who they sent it to,
Yeah.
they did not get a response.
well, we're responding to the emails we get.
They didn't say who, but I
Yeah.
can find
And
out.
we're responding back.
So what I'm
apologize,
hearing,
I would have forwarded that. I
Yeah.
thought you were on that distribution list to the one that was
Sure.
sent from the group.
Right,
so what I'm hearing is capturing kids' hearts can't be done from classrooms, or they have to be together. Oh, my glasses fogged up.
yeah.
But what about CKLA? Can they go to their classrooms
We'll
for
refer
that
Dr. Elliott
training?
on
Do we
that.
have to mix the school groups together to do that?
I mean, technically, no, we do not have to, because we can, do it the other option is we could have the schools meet by, grade level, but still with their staff members and do it together virtually, but work together by school building.
Would that be difficult to implement at this last minute, Dr. Elliott?
There are some hurdles a little bit because on Tuesday of this week, the facilitator of the program got online with all of our facilitators and teacher leaders and trained them on being a co-facilitator. And so we have teacher leaders by grade level. And so the co-facilitator, the person from Pittsburgh who's doing the training is going to be on the screen.
Okay.
And then our people are going to be a co-facilitator in person. And they're tag teaming, facilitating that grade level's ELA material training. And so the concept there was to have your first grade teachers in the same room so that you could be looking at the first grade ELA material and co-facilitating, the person from CKLA on the screen, and then the teacher leader and the instructional coach being the one that tag team that process. So that was the way it was set up. Of course, all plans like we've talked about are fluid, so we definitely, we can take a look at that.
What if say you're gathering a group of first grade teachers, because we use that, and say there's 2 of them or 3 of them that might be compromised, they really don't want to get in that group, but you could still have the group. Could you have an option for those teachers that had a good reason that they just didn't want to mingle?
Sure, I think at this point in time, we definitely want to be open to that.
So who should they contact, Dr. Elliott? You or their principal?
Sure, I would say probably the principal and myself both,
Okay.
and email or contact us, and we'll see what we can do to accommodate that.
Okay.
But I just want to emphasize, we're coming back to work on Monday.
Mhm.
And that's a requirement. We're coming back. Our students are coming back. And I know from talking to principals, there is some nervous anxiety, but they need to come back and we need them to hear the plan in person. And I think that will help relieve some of those people that are a little anxious. I think from my just discussions, and we don't have a poll on this, but just my talk with principals, the vast majority of staff are ready to come back and get back at it. You will have some that are anxious about this, and I understand that. I'm anxious about it too. So, it's just part of it. And I'm not meaning to diminish anything that they're bringing up, because it's a real concern. I get it. And, we'll work with people the best we can. But in the end, we do have trainings which are going to be required to implement our strategic plan and do the things that we want to do. So, we do have some things that are just going to have to happen this year. And we're going to do all we can. We want to protect people. We want to work with people as much as we can. So I'm not trying to be hard-nosed about this at all. They're just, we're going to do as many mitigating factors as we can to keep people safe and ready to come back. But we do have to come back. We do have required trainings, and, CKLA, that's something we've got to train in person for because it is huge. Now, I say in person, you know what I mean. We could be in different small groups or whatever the case may be. But we have to make sure we get that training in for fidelity. Capturing kids' hearts, you couldn't do that virtually. That training, you need to be in groups. Now, you can be in small groups like what we're talking about, but you have to do that training with other people and not necessarily through a virtual way.
Mhm.
So there are just certain things that are required in person.
Okay, something like capturing kids' hearts. If other schools are doing this and say a teacher couldn't participate with us, Could they go to another location where they're doing that training and get it?
Not necessarily with a different school,
It has
because this
to be
training
your
will
own
be geared for
faculty.
us. Now, there are different ways you can do it, and Caption Kids Hearts has different training, so I'm not gonna say that's not necessarily, you could never do it that way. But I'm not also gonna say that another school system would want another person in from somewhere else too. So it's
Yeah.
one of those
Yeah, we've been trying
things
to
to
find
balance out
the
this
balance in
year.
that.
Yeah, we're trying to keep, just like we're trying to do with our classrooms, we wanna keep our teachers together with teachers from their school. So even in the training, like Dr. Elliott was talking about, if you're in the Candy Street Cherokee room, I'm just saying, there could be 2 schools in there, but you're gonna be with people there from your school
Right.
in that setting. You're not gonna be mixing with somebody else from a different school. You could probably even set up where you're with your 3rd grade teachers of your school at the table and keeping it at smaller numbers, segregated off from even other grade spans within your own school. So there are definitely some ways you could look at that.
You know, I'm thinking this company that's, has this program, they're going to have to be creative. And
They are.
They may come up with something for
yes.
makeups for
Yeah.
teachers.
Sure.
Right. No, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, when we did the training earlier in the summer, at the beginning of the summer, actually, you know, the trainer came in, she said, I usually do all these small group things and we always spread out. This year, we're not doing that. And it was a very effective training. The principals, everybody loved it, but we just had to do it a different way than we have done in the past, but it worked really well.
As part of the mitigating factors that you're planning to do, is one of them going to be the asking the questions about symptoms? And would that include asking whether they've been to a hot spot?
When,
Recently.
I'm looking at Kelly Kaiser, part of the protocols we have is when you report to work, you have a QR code that's on the wall, or wherever they have it. For ours, it's on the wall. You go through and there's a Google form you have to answer each day. And it asks you those questions that you're seeing at restaurants or other places. And you have to go through and you also have to you get your temperature taken. And it asks you if your temperature's over 100.4. If it is, back out the door you go.
So the first thing they do when
So-
they walk in the door, they will have help spot.
Mr. President, come up here.
So the first thing that they will do is they will walk in the door, they will have their temperature taken. That's the first step. So if it's a large school, they'll have multiple entry points. And then from there, they either have a QR code set up there for them to scan, or they already have the link. And then they start answering those questions. They identify who they are. They talk about is their temperature below 100.4, which they've just taken. And then it goes through all the mitigating factors that they need to know for the day and reminders for the day. And then it's time stamped and we know if they did it or not.
So that's for the PD also.
That's for everybody that should be going in our buildings from about a week ago until we decide to stop.
Because I know there was some concern expressed about people that have been traveling and vacationing and coming back this soon without that kind of 2-week window.
Right.
And I didn't know if you guys were gonna be able to,
Yeah, well, that's
Factor that
part of
in.
part of the plan that we have is, that we've asked people to identify themselves if they've been in those sort of hot spots. But then, United States is considered a hot spot too, I guess I would say right now. We're kind of balancing that, and trying to put everything that we can in place.
Yeah.
And also from a personnel perspective, trying to be sensitive to those people that have legitimate concerns that we can document.
How do you know what the hotspots are? It seems to change daily.
CDC, you have to check that website often. I even have an app on my phone where I can look at it.
So parents need to check that. You're saying
I
everybody
don't know
needs
that I
to
think parents need to check it. They need to be aware and,
Right.
let us know if they've traveled to one of those locations.
Yeah.
What is the app? You might want to tell the parents.
I don't have to stop looking at it. It's from the CDC.
From CDC?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's their travel app.
So, yeah, we'll go through this, but, there are a lot of things that we're doing. We're following mitigating factors. We're consulting with the health department. In fact, we have a call tomorrow with the health department. Just go over things with both county system and our system to make sure that everybody's on the same page as far as, not the same plan, but, following as many things as we can. So I do feel our staff has done a really good job of preparing for next week, thinking about this. And yeah, we fully understand people are nervous, and that's
Yes.
understandable. That's very understandable. But, I do think we have good protocols in place and we're ready to go. Things can change. We'll continue to watch this. If we need to make changes based on what we learn or based on what we hear or consulting we do with health department or other officials, we will make changes as necessary. I'm not stuck in a rock on this one or at all. We're going to continue to watch this and try to make people feel at as much at ease coming back to school as we can. I promise you that.
I don't know if you or Dr. Duck, did y'all get that too? I mean, it was just a strong email, I thought. Did you?
Yeah,
He
but
said that he didn't get
You
it.
didn't get it?
no, but we hear from both sides.
Yeah.
We really do. I get, we're ready to get back. Can't wait to get back to kids. I get that, and then I get the others too, and I know Jeff does as well. So I understand exactly what folks are saying and where they are.
I've received some from both sides, saying that, we're ready to get back, that
Yeah.
kind of thing, and I have.
So this email is they're ready to get
days,
back, but they're concerned.
Yeah.
Have shared.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it's one of those situations, again, it's hard to make everybody happy right now. Regardless, it's just almost impossible to do. So we're gonna do the best we can, and we're gonna do everything we can to bring back staff and students safely. And that's our promise to the community, our staff, our students, to the board. We're taking this very seriously, and we are gonna do everything we can.
But you are requiring them to wear masks even when they're in the room and spaced 6 feet apart.
If you're social, now we'll go through this today, but if you're, for example, if it was just the two of us in this room, we could take our mask off because we're 15 feet, 20 feet apart. But if you're gonna be closer than that, you would have to wear a mask.
In the letter that you sent out to parents, you might
Well-
tell them how to access that app. for
Yeah,
hotspots.
that's in draft mode, but yes, we can
Okay.
look at that. I haven't seen that app yet, but we'll be back to look at that. Okay, we will proceed then. And Dr. Elliott has put together some information that I want him to go through with you and also the folks that are gonna be watching this, either live and in person now, recorded and shown later, dealing with both traditional in person, traditional at home, and also the virtual school of Cleveland. So he's gonna run through some slides and give you some additional information.
All right, so, as we've, continued on after the reopening guide was put out there, we've been working through that, and Mr. Eason, who has been fielding a lot of questions regarding virtual school of Cleveland, trying to answer those, and then some of, our AOB staff have been doing a good job of trying to stay up on that through email. But we did want to clarify some things because we know there's still a lot of questions out there. We're trying to we want to clarify that, and we know there'll still be some questions. But, so we put together just a simple comparison chart between what we're talking about here, and just kind of wanted to hit the high points of that in a traditional in-person way, and then the other ways as well. So the traditional in-person, again, that definition is students come on a regular school day basis according to the times that have been set. They're here with those mitigating factors that we've outlined and we'll talk more about that, I think, a little bit more, but with the mitigating factors in place. But they are coming to the building, they're going to their classroom with a classroom teacher, they're at the high school, middle school, they're following a schedule with some limited hall changes, but they're in person doing their classroom experience. The at-home, traditional at-home occurs if a school or the district must shut down for whatever reason for a period of time. And those lessons will still be continued on the next day. So if Tuesday we're in school and the next day one of our schools, an example, one school has to shut down, then on Wednesday the expectation is that our teachers will be online using Google Meet, very similar to Zoom, using that to present, following a master schedule for the whole day. And they will be presenting those lessons live for the families so the student can log on and watch and participate in the lesson so that we're not missing an academic day presented. So that is that traditional group, if that were to occur. We have a schedule, and I'll show you that in just a minute, what that would look like. The Virtual School of Cleveland is a program that we will, working with Florida Virtual School, provide curriculum. This will be more of a self-paced program because students can move according to family schedules at a different pace. But the expectation is by the end of each week, there are benchmarks throughout the year that the teacher will be checking and seeing that the progress is being made and that the students are doing the work. So, and that is how grades and attendance will be taken after each week to analyze and see that the work is being done and the material is being mastered and grades are being given. The teachers in that setting will be given a class assigned group of students, and they will be responsible. They will have office hours each week and post those to the families, so the families will have access to log on. The student will have access to log on to ask specific questions about English, math, social studies, whatever the case may be. They'll be available to do that. There will also be times for one-on-one communication. That teacher will be doing one-on-one communication. And also the intervention side of things is an important piece too that we don't want to miss. So if a student is needing interventions, then that teacher will also provide support. We also have a program called iReady that we used the last couple of years, and we're going to continue to do that this year for all of our students, either virtual school or the traditional side. And that is a personalized ELA and math digital resource that puts the student where they are on that level. And as the student works through that program, it builds on the skills what they need help in. And so then the teacher will be responsible to provide updates on progress in the intervention area as well. So virtual school is more self-paced though, but with a teacher assigned to a class of students to stay in contact with and help and support on a daily basis throughout the school year. So those are the three pieces, the main parts, and then I can get some subparts on that in just a minute, but I don't know if
Let me throw one question out at you, because this is a question that comes in via Facebook or other places.
Right.
I know the answer, but I want you to say it for everybody to understand.
Right.
The Virtual School of Cleveland is a student that picks that option. Are they going to be on the computer for 6.5 hours in a row? Or are there breaks? How would that look?
The wonderful thing about using a group like an established organization like Florida Virtual School is they have a plan where you can set the pacing however you want by your family that accommodates your family and you as a student. And so no, it would not necessarily be 6.5 hours in a row or in that time. Now, when you log on and get started on your lessons for the year, what happens is at the top of the screen, as a student, you're going to see this little bar, and it's going to be blank at the beginning of the year. And as you make progress throughout week by week, that bar gets fuller and fuller until you complete it. So there's going to be a bar and a benchmark that you want to complete each week. And it sets, Florida Virtual School sets we put in August 10th as the start date, May 21st as the end date for our academic school year. Then it calculates how many lessons on a weekly basis you should be getting. And so as an individual student, you'll log on, do the work, and some students might be ambitious and work 8 or 9 hours a day if they want to get it through for that week. Or some might space it out in chunks and do 2 hours in the morning, 2 in the afternoon. Maybe some work better late at night, middle or high school students staying up or whatever works with the family. That's the great thing about it, the flexibility. In this case, with students needing to stay home for the choice that the family has made in this case, it will work with a family who might have to be, let's say, in a workplace during the day, but at home and and can monitor that work in the evening.
But there is accountability for it. I mean, this is not the same kind of virtual education that took place in the spring. This is a much more structured approach, and I want to make sure that everyone's very clear on that. There are very high expectations of students that decide to go this route. And parents and families have an obligation to make sure their child is logging on and not just logging on and then playing Xbox or other things. They have to do math, they have to do English, or else they're not gonna make the progress they need to make, and the result, we grade. There will be grades entered into a grade book, just like you're sitting in a traditional classroom environment. So this is much different than the spring. It's an option for parents. We prefer the traditional in-person approach, but we understand that some parents will want to make a choice to do the virtual learning. We'll talk more about that later, but I just want to make sure that everyone's clear on that.
Jeff, can I ask a question?
Yes.
And I'm asking this because of a couple of the counties in our area are having problems and discussions about their virtual schools also. We're limited to a certain number in the virtual schools, is that correct?
Well, I know that when we met and we started planning, we were trying to project a number where would be a good entry point. Back a year ago, when we started planning virtual school, very similar to what other systems had done in the years past, we were wanting to take and enter into that in a small number to begin with for a new year and starting virtual school. But of course, when spring came around, we started looking at what are the ramifications of that. So we decided to start, well, we probably need to increase this because we know there's going to be a need from the survey that we did back in June from our families. We started seeing there's interest. And, we said there were, I think there were over 700 families that we said were interested. So we came and we said we need to look at 300. We looked at 5% of our population as a point to look at. So we said this would be a manageable thing. Now we could, but now we know there's a high interest in this. And the more we've heard over the last couple of weeks, and again, as we monitor the numbers and all the aspects of that, the families, and I've had conversations with families, asking questions, and so there is a high interest in the virtual school. So our interest is over 300 right now.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but the recommendation, what I'm going to be showing later is going to go into more detail on that and show you kind of what we're recommending we do as far as how we operate virtual school this year.
Okay, so that number has increased in the last 30 days or 15 days or something.
In the actual enrollment period.
Right.
We were taking some data off of our survey and trying to figure out what would be a good number. And so now we've been analyzing those enrollment numbers throughout the time. So, and we can talk about it.
Okay.
On the virtual online, is the teacher teaching from her classroom or are they at home?
The teacher would be one of our certified teachers that would come in and they would be working from the school building. So they would be our employee and they would be coming in and they would work the same hours of a day as our other certified teachers and be working and available to work with those individual students that are working through the virtual program.
If they had to be quarantined, the teacher themselves, could they do it from home where they wouldn't infect anybody else, but they're still quarantined and they can still do their teaching?
If there is a medical reason for that.
If there's a medical reason? That's good.
Yeah.
And I asked this, Jeff, I'll be quiet in a second. A couple of the counties near us have had problems finding teachers because of the numbers they're getting, the number of interest they're getting in virtual schools. They're having problems with teachers. Are we okay in that department, or can you even make that decision yet?
Well, we have our staff, thank goodness, we're almost fully staffed in Cleveland City Schools right now with our teaching staff that we have traditionally. And so some of those responsibilities will need to come from those teachers. And so as we are analyzing enrollment numbers, we know there's going to be some personnel decisions that we have to look at moving into next week based off of that.
So for example, with that, if we're losing from the traditional in-person type of student, if we lose a certain population from that, those teachers are not needed then to teach that traditional in-person, and they would need to convert to the virtual teacher. So they're still on payroll, they're still a Cleveland City School employee, their students would be virtual students. So we're gonna be able to use our staff to man our virtual school.
Is that a 10th school day decision or?
It's gonna be, we're gonna be able to start working on this. So I'm gonna get into that once we get into the discussion, because that's why you'll see that we're gonna extend, if the board approves it, our registration date. And then Mr. Kaiser and his, working with the principals, will start working on that on the 29th, early that morning, and get working.
So you're saying
Carolyn has a question.
I had a call from a parent concerning advanced classes. She wants her child or children, she has two, to go to be a part of the virtual school, but they are both in advanced classes. And so she was wondering about how that would work. And
So we met with the high school team and looking at, again, analyzing these enrollment numbers and trying to project how to best use for high school scheduling. For high school teachers and students, the way that will work is you're gonna have potentially a high school teacher who teaches, let's say, for an example, English. They might have a couple of periods in the day that they're teaching traditional in-person, block 1, block 2. But block 3, instead of having an in-person group, they might have 30 virtual school of Cleveland students to be responsible for on their caseload. And so they're going to teach. So when that comes into play, what we're in introducing this and getting started this first semester and looking at the course offerings that Florida Virtual School has and training on that, we believe the core subject areas and the main areas are the best entry point for our teaching staff to begin this process. Now, as far as advanced courses, there are some advanced courses that are offered through Florida Virtual School. And so what we would like to do is entertain exploring what those are and how advanced they are to make sure that they're there to when we talk about advanced courses. And look at, since they're on block schedule at the high school, that gives us some options to provide that opportunity second semester in that regard for those advanced classes. That doesn't necessarily exclude a student who has post-secondary dual enrollment responsibilities. If they're going to Cleveland State or Lee or any of our post-secondary institutes that we have an agreement with anyway, their schedule potentially could follow that. And so it's almost a customizable thing that working with the counselors at the high school, especially those juniors and seniors. The counseling team, Ms. O'Brien, we're really focused in on that, knowing that as a junior or a senior, when you get into some of those upper classes, it gets specialized, let's say. And so we know that the counselors in the next couple of weeks are going to really want to talk with those students who are very interested in this virtual school of Cleveland option to just talk through the plan, and like they would even if they were in person, because it is a specialized coursework. So it's going to be something that we would encourage them to work with the counselor on how to develop that. But like some of the core classes, such as your English and math and some of those other history classes, those will be the target classes for the beginning for this first semester in the block virtual school.
Yeah, and as we grow, we're going to be able to offer more, but, I gave an example, I think yesterday of, you take a mechanics class. You can't operate on a car hands-on in a virtual world. So a class like that would be awfully difficult to exist. Much easier in the future for us to look at those AP type classes. But this is our first semester in, and we're trying to get it off the ground with fidelity and do the best we can. And we have, I think, a very good program to offer, but it may not offer all classes right at the beginning. We may by second semester, be able to offer some of those AP courses once we, finesse this and we understand better how the scheduling will operate. A lot of this, while we have a good plan, we need to see it in action. We need to see it in action, and then we can work out some of those kinks that are just inevitable that are gonna happen. We think we've thought through everything, but we'll get there and think, oh, well, let's do this with the virtual school, and we can then offer that class second semester. So, we wanna offer those, but we can't offer everything right off the bat. It's gonna
Dr.
take
Day,
some
let's
time.
let you move forward with the presentation. I think we
Yeah.
still have a lot of questions, but I
Sure.
think they're gonna be answered.
They may very well, okay.
I do have one that may not be
Sure, Peggy.
answered. I want to make sure I understand with the virtual school in Cleveland. The curriculum is coming from the Florida virtual school, but it's going to be facilitated by our teachers.
And it meets Tennessee state standards as well, because it's been used for a number of
Okay.
years in other school systems across Tennessee. So it is Florida virtual school, which I know people get Florida, but it is built to meet our Tennessee state standards. Florida virtual school is it's used nationwide.
And the
It's
teachers
a
could
very
They can do
well-
that at home.
developed use,
That's what
yes.
Oak Ridge City
Yeah.
Schools is
Right.
going to
Gotcha.
use.
Okay.
Right. Any question?
Yeah, and I will piggyback on that, Peggy, because, like Dr. Dyer was saying, it is vetted out. And we did notice, and just to tell you how the planning process has been going in preparing for this, at the 6th and 7th grade level in social studies, Florida virtual is a little different, but we can customize that. And so some of the 6th grade curriculum and 7th grade curriculum meets into for social studies. Covers our 6th grade standards and then vice versa. So we'll be able to blend those together and create what matches for our students. So that's what I like about the program too, is while the other areas are really streamlined and match our standards, we are different levels. But in that 6th and 7th grade social studies, for that example, we are working through that, and our Blade facilitator and our middle school team are looking at that and how to get that set up before we get started. So it is really aligned to it, but we did notice that, and the great thing, we followed up with that, and it is customizable that we can make it meet our standards. The last few slides on this presentation, I just wanted to hit on. I think we've summarized this table pretty much. The instructional delivery again is, I will say, if an individual student, for instance, becomes in the traditional in-person setting, if an individual student has to be quarantined at home, that they've been coming to school and it's like October and they get sick and they have to be quarantined for a couple of weeks, then what we will do is the elementary classroom teacher, and this is one of those things that we're going to be working through with our staff, and this is in a slide presentation for back to school on Monday at each school. We went over it with our administrators the other day, is that individual student will stay home. But then we will be working through the daily schedule that classroom teacher follows on a regular basis, because that teacher's still going to be teaching their classroom, but be able to log on and provide and record their sessions and provide that access for that quarantine student. That's the plan in that individualized way. For at-home learning, we're going to have a different schedule, and I'll show you that in just a minute, just so that we're all on the same page there.
Jeff, at-home learning, and then a parent called me this week and said she was gonna homeschool,
Yes.
and she was asking me about a curriculum. So is there a distinction between those parents who say, well, I'm gonna homeschool, I'm taking off from work and going to homeschool, as opposed to the traditional at-home instruction?
Yeah, now, in homeschool situation, they have to come in and fill out paperwork to homeschool if they're a resident of the city of Cleveland, and make an appointment, come by the AOB and to let us know if they're homeschooled and they're a city resident. If it's virtual school, which we would really like for them to consider that, and we have that mechanism like we've explained in place. The at-home learning is the traditional materials and resources that are going on a daily basis in person, just transfers to the online setting kind of situation. We know that there are some connectivity issues out there, And for those, we have a plan to, again, provide the paper support. And then there would be a communication decision made between the parent and the teacher at the beginning of the year, the best way to communicate if they needed support on that instructional packet at home.
I feel like somewhere, parents need to know that if they're going to do the homeschooling themselves, they need to know that they have to come by the central office.
Yeah,
And,
and that's been a standard forever, of course. And I would just second what Dr. Elliott said. If they're looking at homeschooling, I know there's a lot of reasons people homeschool. If it's a religious thing, right. But if they're homeschooling and it's just based on the fact they don't want to send their student to the school, I would strongly encourage them to look at the virtual school of Cleveland, because in a sense, that is a version of homeschooling with still a connection to a real teacher with a curriculum that we are providing. So that's an option that they could have. I wouldn't call it true homeschooling necessarily,
I
but
think there was,
the virtual school of Cleveland could be an answer.
Yeah.
Well, and two, I'm not sure if this was the question or not, but the traditional at-home is not an option for homeschooling.
Right.
It's totally different. It only comes into play if we're closed for quarantine or somebody has to quarantine. So they're not gonna be able to log on and use the at-home as a homeschool curriculum.
Right.
And I think that's where there's been some confusion.
Sure.
Jeff, has the state given up the requirement for PE?
No.
How are they doing that?
The next slide,
Okay.
let me explain that, because we are, and we've been working on what we call a continual learning plan, and I'll tell you about that in just a second. The last slide before I tell you about that schedule and the way that works is just talks about that we've met with our special education team, we've met with our ESL team, they're working the IEPs and will still be in place. Now, again, all these decisions are made with an IEP decision, that team coming together. And so Mr. Stone and his staff were meeting even earlier this week and prior, just talking about logistics of managing that. So a lot of the IEP meetings will continue virtually for parents. That would be probably the preferred setting for right now as we've talked through this. And then ELL students, we have something known as an individual learning plan, and those students will still follow that in that case as well. So as far as that's concerned, attendance in the traditional way, in person, I think we all pretty much know when they're there, we count them present. If they're at home learning, then it's going to be a daily attendance, and so the teacher, as they're presenting on Google Meet, or, they're going to see their students on there. They'll be able to see if they're present in that regard. And then those who have instructional packets that aren't able to connect, then there'll be, like I said, a communication protocol put in place between the parent and the family and that teacher of the way on a daily basis to stay in contact with them to make sure they're staying in. And as those contacts and those instructional days fall out, then they will record attendance that way. In a similar way with virtual school, attendance is a little different because it's self-paced, but that'll be analyzed at the end of each week, like I was talking about, that progress bar, and attendance will be taken at the end of the week based off of completion of the work. So there is still accountability for attending and doing the work that is assigned, okay? And then our students, again, they have they'll be assigned. Now, at this question that was asked earlier, for Virtual School of Cleveland, some of the staffing Mr. Cloud was talking about, the staffing could be, I just want families to understand, especially I guess at the elementary level, it might not be, if you're in the Arnold school zone, it might, because of grade levels and configuration to provide the support, it will be a Cleveland City School teacher, but it might be a teacher who has not traditionally been housed at Arnold. It could be a teacher from maybe Yates or Ross or somewhere else, but it would be a Cleveland City Schools employee, okay? So that's the general overview chart to kind of compare notes and want to make sure we get that out there.
Can I ask a question about attendance? So if a student is quarantined and not sick, but maybe mom or dad or somebody else in the family has the COVID-19, and so they are asked to stay home, does that affect their truancy? Or, I mean, how are we gonna calculate those days that a student misses if they're not really sick, but they're not supposed to come to school? We're not gonna send them to truancy court, are we? It's my question.
No, we have a code, the state's given us a code for distance learning and opportunities in this kind of situation.
Okay.
And so we'll be able to utilize that the state has given us some leeway on that piece for this year.
Okay, that's good.
I don't know where this question belongs, but having taught foreign language, I thought, how are these teachers going to teach a foreign language with a mask on like this, a cloth mask?
I will address that when I come to my section.
Y'all thought about
So
that?
not necessarily foreign language, because I don't speak a foreign language really, so, but I will show you a model of that, example of that, how the teacher can do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then the next slide, and there's 4 slides here, and I'll just hit the high points so that you know, for elementary specifically, at-home learning, when we did it, the state has asked us to really think through a continual learning plan because we don't want to miss a beat. If one day we're in person, the next day we're at home, we want to continue. So at the very beginning of the year, our charge is to give in the hands of our students who are in person and make sure they understand what does the day schedule look like if you're going to be at home, so that if it's the next day or a month from now, it's communicated out there. So our schedule for K-3 students would be online for ELA for that teacher. They would follow this. PE requirement is still there, so it can be in two ways. Sometimes our physical education teachers, we haven't had a chance to gather and meet, but I'm sure they would create some great PE lessons that they can provide electronically. But then sometimes it might be take a break, go in your backyard, get your exercise, and then so we've strategically placed the online times throughout the day of some of the core subjects so that there are some physical breaks in the day, not being on the computer the whole time, but we're still covering that time that is needed for that instruction to continue. We are looking at across the board in Cleveland City schools, all our elementary schools, if we're in an at-home learning experience, following the same master schedule at home. We started thinking that there could be families who go to the same church and they have somebody that is a part of Black Power School and maybe also they have friends who are Mayfield, and they might be relying on a church member or somebody to take care of their kids, and they're coming together in the same home, and we felt like in our community, it would be good if everybody follows the same daily schedule so they can know that. So this is the reason why we're following that. So there is math, there are times for writing, science, and some STEAM time. Our specialist elementary teachers can provide some opportunities and activities related to music, art, technology, library, and those kind of things throughout the day. We also have the requirement that physical activity, that recess time. So in that traditional 7-hour day, there is a 15-minute daily recess time for another break that they would follow it. They can follow this. This gives them some guidance on a family, guidance on what to expect on a daily basis.
Is it like a Zoom meeting where can the teachers see the students and they can ask questions and things and?
Yeah. So they're in the class and some of this would be right off the bat, at the beginning of the year. This is some of the training that we want to put into place first of all, with our teachers. We're going to do some Google Classroom, Google Meet training on the protocols. And then as students come back, that reconnection week, and even throughout, continue, repeat about the plan. But the idea would, and practice through that, of how to log on and how to check in.
What would be nice is if you could invite us sometimes into some of those classrooms, and so we could watch. We wouldn't talk, but we could just sort of watch. So when people ask us about it, we said, well, yeah, I was in the 3rd grade classroom myself, and watch the teacher teach and the kids' reaction.
And you know, a great idea is, I know some of you have done guest reading when it's
Yeah.
read across America and those kind of things. So could come and schedule a time maybe and come in and read a book online to the class or something like that.
Yeah, that'd be a great idea.
So that's grades K-3. We'll go to the next one quickly. 4-5 is not much different. The requirement for ELA is not as many minutes. So we do have a little bit of adjusted schedule, and we flipped a couple of things. And then, so it's very similar though, the schedule. 6th through 8th grade, they will follow their bell schedule. So whatever their traditional block and schedule is and what they go through on a daily basis, they will follow that schedule and be expected to log on to meet with their English teacher, math teacher, whatever the case is at their traditional, when their schedule meets. So that's 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students. And then at the high school, very similar. They'll follow the block schedule and they'll be expected to log on for their coursework and to have their lesson from that teacher according to the period of the day that it occurs. So that's the way the schedules when it's at home will go. And so the very beginning of the year, we're going to communicate this, again, post it on our websites, but also get it in the hands of our students at the beginning of the year when they come back for traditional.
I was glad to see that the high school is doing it based on block, not subject areas, because I know there was some issues in the spring with students who had dual enrollment. Things would overlap and conflict, and I think that's great.
Yeah, we were trying to, and when everybody, we learned a lot in the spring, you know, and this is going to be, and that's one thing we want to say is that this is going to be very scheduled out. And we tried to take what we learned and apply it and improve on it. And you're right. And some of these cases, some of these students, again, might be attending a dual enrollment class too. So we want to stick to the fidelity of the high school schedule so that if they are able to go to another campus for some reason, they still have that opportunity. We don't want to interfere with their schedules that way either.
So every class is going to be online, and every teacher is going to be on camera all day long.
In at-home learning.
At-home learning.
Now, they do still have like at the high school and middle school, they're still having their planning. And again, if you noticed at that elementary schedule, when the students are having their PE or their lunchtime or recess or there was some iReady time, which is that program that they do, that we wanted to be mindful of giving our teachers a screen break for a while to regroup, to also answer maybe a call that a student who's doing instructional packets who might have called in or had a communication says, I don't know how to, I need help on this. That gives them a window of time to be able to do that. So it gives them a break throughout the schedule as well.
A lot of details.
Very complicated.
It is very complicated, but it works. And we'll make tweaks as we go, promise you that.
A year from now, we'll be experts.
Well, exactly. Well, great. Well, we'll move on, and we're going to be looking now at back-to-school options. And Dr. Elliott laid out very well what the plan is. But I do now want to start bringing some recommendations to you about some changes to our original plan that was approved by the school board. What I would like to recommend is the following. I would like, instead of online registration ending really today, I'd like to extend our online registration until 4:30 p.m., which is the close of business on Tuesday, the 28th. That's next week. Families may select either traditional in-school or the virtual School of Cleveland, just like they can select today. If approved, here's where the changes start happening. Right now, as you're aware, and we've talked about it already, we have a 5% capacity. I am recommending we lift that. I'm recommending we move from 5% into really an unlimited number. We have the capacity to do that.
That's good.
We have the interest to do that. Currently, around 22% of families who have registered online have selected and indicated an interest in the virtual school of Cleveland. So we clearly have much more interest than 5%. And we sort of thought that might be the case, but in reality, it truly is the case. So that's where we are. Right now, as of yesterday, 79% of new kindergarten and returning students have registered online so far for one of the options. So online registration is going very strong. It's going really well. And that shows me that the vast majority of our parents are engaged, our families are engaged, and they have selected one option or the other, which makes me feel really good. Now, we still have about 20% left to go. So we're going to be hitting this hard. We have if the board approves this today, we have a letter that will be emailed out to every parent that has a Power School email address. We're going to hit a press release to the media and really press hard at this from a communication standpoint to hopefully get the others to come to the table now and register online. As it says here, if approved, families may switch from the virtual School of Cleveland to the traditional in-school model for second semester. So the current plan that we have, that the board approved, said that if you selected one or the other, then you were there for the entire school year. This plan that I'm bringing to you now, this change would give parents flexibility, families flexibility at semester break to choose one option or the other. They're currently signed up for traditional in school, and they do that the first semester, and second semester they think maybe we should try virtual because of whatever reason. They could switch to that. On the other side, if they start off with virtual, they would be virtual through December, but they could switch to come back to traditional in-school, which we prefer for second semester. Now, I'm gonna go through some pros and cons of that in a minute, so we'll look at that, but that's a recommendation that is here.
One question on that, originally they had to stay all year, whatever they chose, right? And they had to provide their own device.
Right.
If they go from being at the high school to virtual, they still have to have their own device.
If they go from one to the other, they may have one of our devices already, and that's something that Dr. Raper maybe could speak to, or they may be required to use their own. What are your thoughts on that?
So students for switching back and forth.
Yes.
So if they're in school on our campus and we've issued laptops, then we would issue a laptop to them at that point. Keeping in mind that we're not expecting laptops to get here for 3-8.
Right, that's what I was wondering.
Right. So,
You're gonna have that.
those going virtual online will need to provide a laptop or device that can connect to the internet at the beginning of the school year. Yes, that's very correct. So it's important to understand, because we have to begin staffing this program. If a registration option is not selected by July 28th, so if a family does not select an option by July 28th, the only option available at that point will be the traditional in-school model. Mr. Kaiser has to get to work on the 29th, staffing both our in-school approach and our virtual approach to education. So we have to get to work on that, but because that will take time to do. Families who have already registered. So if a family's already gone online and registered for one of the two approaches and wants to switch that, they can't do that online. They have to email Michael Kars in his department, and that email address is here, and that will be in the letter that goes home to parents as well. So that's really important that we understand and everybody understands. Now, some pros and cons of the switch going back and forth at semester. Pros, number one, family choice. We are here to serve the public, and even though it causes a lot of stress for our staff, and we have to reconfigure and think about this, when we get to that point, it does provide family choice to allow parents to switch at semester. COVID cases could be down. Then again, they could be up. We just don't know at this point. So they could be down and then we could have potentially less mitigation factors in schools, and maybe that makes families feel more secure coming back. I don't know. We do prefer students to be in a traditional in-school format. That's just something we know that we're able to provide a top-notch service either way, but we feel like that personal touch of having the teacher in front of you and your classmates around you, it's just a better environment for learning. Cons could include unknown staffing issues. Mr. Kaiser his hair may turn gray before we're done with this. There's a lot of issues dealing with this, possibly would involve moving teachers at semester. If more students decide to come to one school and some decide to leave another, we may have to move a teacher, for example, from a certain grade level within a school, or potentially from one school to the next, or from virtual to a traditional, or traditional to a virtual. That's just something that might have to happen, which could cause a possible disruption to class assignments. So you could have potentially students that need to change teachers at semester, even in elementary school, which is not necessarily ideal. But if you have to switch up your staffing, you very well may have to do that at semester. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that, because that's not your norm. That's not normally what you do. Middle school and high school, sure. Not elementary, that's a different task. And then dealing with curriculum pacing from virtual to traditional. If you're gonna go from your virtual school of Cleveland, which is using Florida virtual school curriculum, and you come back second semester to us, we're gonna be using CKLA, we're gonna be using all these different curriculum that you've not been part of in the virtual school of Cleveland necessarily, especially in the elementary world. So those are just some pros and cons to think through. There could be others too. I just wanted to give you a short list to kind of make you think a little bit and maybe provoke some questions from you. So.
Okay, so staffing, I can imagine, I can't even imagine the challenges there.
Right.
But what I want to make sure that we as a board are able to do is not let finances prevent you from hiring additional teachers if you need, or having the flexibility. So in the budget, do we have some of that available to allow you to have access to, if you need to hire more teachers, even if it doesn't fall within BEP?
That's a great question. Cindy and Kelly are here, and I'm gonna ask both of them to come forward real quick to talk about that question, because that's we have bantered that back and forth, so I'd like for them.
Because I'd hate for all of this moving around to end up with having a teacher with more students in there than they need
Sure.
to be in there,
Right.
to accommodate for a virtual class and vice versa.
I agree. And staffing and budget are intricately tied together. When you hire people, that's where the vast majority of your funds for a school system go. So we'll allow, if you want to, did you hear the question?
Staffing and finances,
Do we have
right?
budget that we can finagle to allow for flexibility with hiring?
If it were a typical year and, we always wait for day 10 to look and see whether or not we're gonna need more staff and how we're gonna manage that. This year, our BEP estimate that's in the budget, our actual that we received last week is higher than I projected, so we do have some funds there. Still, with much caution, I said we don't know what sales tax is gonna look like. That's our big revenue right now. We lost a lot of money on our last June state mixed drink tax, and that's another big revenue for us. But we do have more resources available this year with the CARES Act funds. There's a technology grant that's coming in from the state that we found out yesterday. We'll be able to apply for that, and we would get some money back on our laptops that we bought, the Chromebooks. So I do think that working together, we can shift some of these funds, and the general fund will be able to pick up the additional licenses. Now, that's not saying we could pick up 5,000 licenses, but CARES Act is already buying 200 of those. So I do think we would be able to buy the licenses for virtual school, and Kelly is great working with moving staff around. If it were to be the case where we had to hire 1 or 2 more teachers, we could work that. There's some other things we've looked at as far as places at some point we may have to cut. So that's just another option that's out there as well.
And I'll throw out there things like travel obviously won't be used as much this year because conferences won't be held virtually instead of probably in person for the most part. So I think we will experience savings from those kind of things. So I wanted you to hear straight from the person who does our budget and works in that every single day. There is some wiggle room this year that maybe we haven't seen in previous years, but we need to be careful about that. And we would only hire if absolutely necessary. You don't want to just keep hiring. So that's something we will keep a close eye on.
And so we will do everything we can to shift internally
Mhm.
and to pick up as many of those students as we can. Because, there's a potential we may need to pick up people at the beginning of the year. And then there's a potential that something may change if we start going back. So kind of day 10 is gonna happen to us. What we usually do on day 10 is gonna happen to us maybe more than once if we go with this plan. We just have to be aware of that and do everything we can to be conscious of that being a possibility.
Mr. Kaiser, I'm a fifth grade teacher at a school and I've taught that for 10 years, and you call me into your office and you say, Ms. Robinson, I need you to second semester, teach third grade virtually. Are you thinking you're gonna have to do a lot of that? And is there a hierarchy for how you would pick and choose teachers?
Yeah. So I think we all remember what we did when we staffed Candy's Creek. So this process in some ways will be very similar, where we have been soliciting, I started asking teachers, are there people that want to volunteer to be a virtual school teacher? If we can move people that want to volunteer, we certainly will choose those individuals first. But certainly if we are dealing with a large number of students, then we will have to have teachers for those classes. So then we'll get into a hierarchy of, specialized training. We have a list that we run down through, specialized training, and then ultimately ending up at time in the building.
Okay.
And so we would have to have those conversations with those teachers, which we honestly have to have at different points every year. It's just not a large number of individuals usually.
It's kind of like the rezoning all over again, and all the teachers.
It's rezoning with less information because it's just slower for us to get the final numbers. Once we can sort of run and see what we might do, but we really can't make any final decisions till we have our final virtual school numbers. And then we can look at where we might be able to move people around from.
And us moving the deadline isn't helping your stress level at all.
It is what it is. I mean, it doesn't increase my stress level. I know what we're gonna have to do. And so, once we make those decisions, we can,
You have
sit
enough
down to a
time
plan.
to do that. Okay.
Yeah, it is that time of year where we do this anyway.
Right.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Before you move on, go ahead.
Question, I guess for Jeff. Since the laptops won't be here until October, will they be able to access the classes that they need on a telephone?
There are apps for the Google Meet that you can put on a device such as that. And so if a family has an older phone or they're another access to somebody's phone, then they could do it that way. I've done it, some meetings that way as well from my phone, so they could do that.
That's good. They need to know that they
Yeah.
could use the phone, as long as they keep it plugged in, because it'll run out of
Right.
battery real fast.
And just as a reminder too, we ordered the Chromebooks, our laptops, as soon as the board approved the budget to get in there. Fortunately, unfortunately, school systems around the world are also ordering laptops right now because of the same reasons we're ordering more laptops. So we're in the queue. Luckily, we had a big order, and because of that big order, we are getting them faster than a lot of other school systems. So that's a good thing, but they're just backed up right now. And that's
This is
gonna take
a
additional
Cody
time.
question. How many are still out there and not been turned in? We know that. I mean,
Between
that-
last year's
Yeah.
laptops, there's between 80 and 90 that are still outstanding. We have about 20 at the middle school and about 50 to 60 at the high school.
So is there a possibility to get some of them just to help a little bit? That 80 or 90 would help. I mean,
Well, so those are likely on the lease that just expired. So we're still trying to get those back in and collect them or collect payment for it to pay off the device with the lease manufacturer, or the leasing company, because they actually still own the laptops. And then the other devices would be for the high school that is getting the devices already. So any that belong to the middle school would go back to the leasing company. And then for the high school, those devices would go back into their inventory to be reissued as the high school plans to in August.
And if they don't have them, are they responsible for paying for them? Okay.
Yeah,
What are your steps to recover those if there's 80 out there? I mean, what is your process? Phone calls, personal visits?
yeah, the Blade facilitators have been contacting everybody that had them still outstanding. And then, we've received several parents back, just even through the registration process of, hey, we just haven't had a chance to turn this in yet. And so the only ones that we're extremely concerned about would be graduating seniors, and I think that that list is very small, I can't give you an exact number. But the rest of them, as they come back in, we can collect those laptops. Traditionally, it takes about 2 weeks to collect all the laptops when everyone's in person. And so I think once students are back in the building, those laptops are gonna show back up. But if not, charges have already been issued to the students' accounts for any laptops that didn't come back.
So Cody, you said you turned those off though, right? They can't be used.
Right, they get disabled.
So they're kind of dead computers.
They're bricks right now.
They're bricks. So that's a good thing too.
Yeah, I don't understand why they would just want a computer laying on the kitchen table. You can't use it. I mean, why not
Just that it's
just,
always,
why not call and turn it in or, I don't get that.
They have been pawned.
That's possible.
Except they don't work, so somebody got a bad deal.
Yeah, right.
but out of the 3,000 something devices that are out, I mean, we've recovered well over 90 something percent of them.
Yeah, that's a good percentage, but still 80's 80.
All right, going on with back to school options, the next slide, please. So information videos are, either are or will be soon posted to, our website dealing with the virtual school of Cleveland. Julie and Cody have created a back to school section on our website now where we're gonna be putting all things back to school, including the slideshow, a link to this board presentation, all things will go in there so parents can do one-stop shopping on the website, don't have to unpack the things. For those who previously selected the virtual school of Cleveland, through the registration process already, there will be a Google Hangout taking place tonight. Now, we're limited on Google Hangouts to how many people can actually actively participate in a Hangout. So you can't open it to just everybody because it could crash it. So we are limiting that, but we are gonna record it. And those sessions will be recorded and then posted to our website as well in that section. And families that need additional assistance can email us at cdquestions@clevelandschools.org. And we have been receiving those and responding to those. So when questions come in, they're responded to fairly quickly as far as whatever needs they may have as far as registration or anything else goes. So in the end, I guess we'll put that together one item for you to vote on, but really what I'm asking for here is permission to extend the deadline to Tuesday and permission to lift the cap to an unlimited number of virtual school students. I mean, that's really what it comes down to as far as this change that would take place.
We have to vote on that. I have a question.
Okay.
So if I sign up, if I get up today and sign up for Virtual School of Cleveland, will I hear back right away that yes, you're in, or you gotta wait until next week? Or how as a parent will I know if my child got in there or not? Because then I don't know if I need to hurry up and sign up for the other.
Right, yeah, the placement, I believe, is taking place after we close on Tuesday, is that correct? That's where we're going next,
so the idea is that there would be a email, welcome type email letter on the 29th of July.
So they won't hear anything until that time?
Probably not through that process because the volume of coming in. Now, the parents who are, information tonight, they'll be getting information about the program and then they can watch it over the weekend, the video that will be posted. And then if they go on and change their registration, and then once they all get enrolled and make their changes, because if somebody wants to flip and emails that, then that gives us money and look at all that, make sure. But then if we're saying here that if this is a decision that's made here and we've lifted it, then our plan is to move forward with those people who've put that as being a part of it. And then we'll send out information to all those people that are on that master list on Wednesday as soon as the registration is closed.
So barring connectivity or computer problems, if I sign up for virtual school, I can pretty well count that I'm going to be in.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
But if you don't hear something on the 29th, then the wires might have gotten crossed and you need to
Right.
confirm.
Communicate with us.
Yep.
And also, just a reminder, if folks want to change, if they've signed up for virtual and now they're learning, well, maybe traditional is the way to go, they just need to email and Michael Kars will make that change, but we just need some basic information. That will be going out in the letter today too.
And that email address is uchelp@clevelandschools.org. And that's where you can make that change if you have already previously updated that.
Right.
Registered or enrolled.
Okay, so we need a motion on Dr. Dyer's two recommendations for the change in our plan. Okay, Carolyn Ingram, a second.
Second.
Tom and Julie, if you'll please call the roll.
Carolyn,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Krista,
Yes.
Dawn,
Yes.
Peggy,
Yes.
Charlie.
Yes.
Here we go.
We will go to the second option, and for this, I'm going up here for show and tell part. So mask and face coverings. As you can see, before I get started with the presentation, we put some blue tape here on the floor. And this is to simulate sort of what a classroom would look like. Of course, it looks different than what we have here, but you're my students in this example. As long as I'm in this zone up here and I have social distance from you, I can take my mask off and talk to you because I'm behind my zone. Students will not cross my line here. I'm here to talk to you and you're my students. But if I decide I need to come over and I need to have a conversation with the two of you because we're working on a math problem, and I come out of my blue zone up here, now I can be in proximity to you and we can talk about the math problem and things you need to do. So going back to what you were talking about earlier with foreign language or anything, as long as I stay up here, my mask can be off, as long as we keep that 6-foot distance in a classroom setting. So I want to make sure I showed you that and kind of talked through that. So as we get into the face mask and coverings discussion, there are links here. We don't have to go to each link, but I wanted to put that here where families could get on, or whoever wanted to check this out could look at some various stories dealing with masks. The first two are links to the Cleveland Dave Lee banner. Lee urges mask use. It's not required, not mandated, but as he mentioned, I'm paraphrasing, a mask is not Democrat or Republican, it's a mask. And you can, choose your options there. Mayor Brooks has been in touch with me and is a very strong proponent of wearing masks while in public. There's a story there about that, and I also have the letter that he sent me. The TSSAA, as you may be aware, voted yesterday that if you're going to be coming to a sporting event, football, whatever, in the fall, you'll be required as a visitor to wear a mask while in the stands or on the sideline watching the sport. We also have a link here to the Tennessee and Bradley County, actually the state of Tennessee's COVID information, where you can find Bradley County. Currently, where the percent of active cases is at 0.42%, which squarely puts us in the yellow section of our plan, and that's what we're planning for. There was also a new AP NORC poll that came out this morning, and I realize polls are controversial to some degree, but I at least wanted to put it there. The poll they did showed that 3 out of 4 of Americans that they polled agree that it's time for Americans to be wearing masks while in public. Again, I know polls are polls and they can be controversial or taken in any way, but that's out there. If we go to the next screen, this is what I am recommending to you as a board, and if approved, this is what would be going out to families today. Out of an abundance of caution, Cleveland City Schools will require students in grades 3 and above to wear a mask or face covering that covers their mouth and nose when 6 foot of social distancing is not possible. Students in pre-kindergarten through grade 2 are encouraged to wear a mask or face covering. Face shields may be an option for those students with medical, behavioral, or other challenges who are unable to wear masks or face coverings. Now, the grade 3 and above is what I'm seeing as what is happening in school systems that are requiring masks. okay? So if you go look at Oak Ridge, you go look at other school systems that are already requiring this approach to school, they've left K through 2 as a basically strongly encouraged. And I also did talk with our local health department and consulted with them on this. The problem you get into with the younger students, the youngest, is a lot of times they're going to be wanting to touch their face and pull the mask off or pull it down. And from the research that I've read and the things that are out there for the public to see, the more you touch your face, the better that you have of possibly coming down with this COVID disease. So it's a recommendation that we go with grade 3 and above as being mandated to wear it when social distancing is not possible. But for K through 2, strongly encourage the use, but not necessarily make it a mandated approach. We go to the next screen. Adults, including visitors, educators, and staff, would be required to wear a mask or face covering again when 6 foot of social distancing is not possible. So in my setting where I am right now, I'm not wearing a mask. I'm 6 feet away from all of you. But again, if I cross over my line and come up, the mask needs to come on. And I've stated this must be modeled and enforced by the building administrators as well as by central office administration. So we need to practice what we preach in this. And it does take practice. And I know there will be times where I probably walk out and I forget to put it on, or I'll leave it in the car and I'm gonna have to go back and get it. So we'll all be learning as we go, and the more we do it, the practice becomes something that's just part of our everyday procedure, and we'll get better at this as we go. There are exceptions, of course. Exceptions to mask and face covering requirements must be made for those whom it is not possible due to a documented medical condition, disability impact, or other health or safety factors. So for example, if we have a student or a teacher that maybe has, asthma and problems breathing, if we have a doctor's note, of course, we're going to work with that. If it's something dealing with an IEP where a student can't wear a mask because they have some kind of issue, we're going to work with that. So we will work with people is what I'm trying to say. The vast majority will be expected. But if you have a documented reason from a doctor or an IEP or something, then of course we would work with that person as far as that goes. Okay? Mask breaks. This is really important. I don't want to wear a mask all day. No one does. Okay? So mask breaks are going to be necessary throughout the day. Breaks should occur when students can be 6 feet apart and ideally outside. An example that I used the other day in our administrators meeting, the middle school, a lot of times they'll have their lunch in the cafeteria. In the past, it's everybody in there at one time. That will change, of course. But they'll walk outside on the way back to class. Well, during that time, they could easily spread out, take your mask off, get some fresh air, stay outside for maybe a few extra minutes. Nobody's going to care if you do that, and get some air, get some clean, fresh air, and take your mask off, and that's okay. Masks could also be removed, of course, when you're eating or drinking. You can't do that. You can't eat your lunch while you have a mask on. Masks are also not necessary when 6 feet of social distancing within the school building is maintained. An example could be if a STEAM class of some sort at the high school needs to go to the common space to work on something, you could easily spread out in that room and be 6 feet apart. But if you're working in small groups, so if the 3 of us are working on a project and you're within that 6 feet, even if you're 6 feet from another group, you would need to have your mask on. So that's something that would be in a part of this procedure, okay? Masks and face coverings should be provided by the student and family, but extra disposable face masks will be made available by the school for students who need them as supplies remain available. Reusable masks, such as what I have here, and face coverings provided by families. Really, the recommendation is to wash daily. Now, that's for parents to decide. I don't know if you're actually going to do that or not, but that's a recommendation that is on most health department sites. We're going to have masks provided by the state that will last for the first really couple of months of school. We have enough. But just like we require parents and families to supply their kids with shoes or pants or other things, that sort of fits into this category. So we're going to do the best to have supplies at school. We're going to spend money on PPE once our supplies from the state run out. So I'm not saying that if a student shows up at school, oh man, I left my mask on the bus, that we're gonna put them in detention. That's not the way this is going to work. We're gonna work with them. We're gonna make sure they have the supplies they need. We're gonna take care of our students and make sure they have a mask. But we do ask that families provide those. Almost every store now is providing or is requiring, a mask. If you go to Walmart, for example, you have to wear a mask. So we know families have them. We just ask that they help us with that. And then mask and face coverings are required to be worn by everyone on the school bus during school bus transportation in this case as well. Okay? Mask and face coverings are considered part of the dress code policy and will be enforced as part of the dress code policy as well. We have a resolution that will be coming up soon in the board packet here where we do waive a lot, just like you did in, I think it was April meeting, you waived a lot of the regulations dealing with 1920 so we could figure out and finesse some of the rules to meet what the state was asking us to do. We're going to be asking you to do the same thing here. For example, in our dress code, it says that before a dress code change to the policy requires a 60-day notice. Obviously, we're within 60 days of school starting. So that would waive that so we could implement this as a dress code for this upcoming year. And then finally, mask and face coverings will be required whenever the county active cases remain above 0.25. So in the yellow or the red color for us, for example. When the active cases fall below this level, in this particular case, masks will be strongly encouraged when social distancing is not possible for employees and students. Individual teachers, though, this was important, may require the use of a mask in their classroom if they have a documented underlying health reason. So if a teacher has, some kind of health reason why they need students to wear a mask, in that case, they can work with their building principal on that and communicate that out to the students, not their health reason, but just that, we're going to require masks in this classroom and go from there.
Will the bus drivers have masks for students if they get on the bus and they don't have a mask on?
Hal's over here, but yes, we will have masks on bus. We want to make sure that they're good to go, just like a school building.
And will they have some assistance to help the bus drivers make sure the kids keep their mask on?
Well, that's part of, that would take a lot of extra staffing.
I know.
So we're going to do the best we can. It's a difficult situation as far as that goes. The bus driver needs to concentrate on the road. And that has to be a concentration. We're going to work a lot though when we bring our quarter of students back every day to go over these procedures, but we really want to go over the why. I don't want to jump in just straight to, if you don't do this, you're going to be disciplined and go hard-handed on this. We need to explain why we're doing these things. And we're going to spend time doing that and explaining the why we're doing bus this way, or the why we can't have, you'll learn in a minute, no air conditioning on the bus and the windows will be down. That's going to take some explaining to do because it's just different. So whether it's speaking to kindergarten kids or to seniors in high school, we want them to truly understand why we're doing these things, not just the heavy-handed approach. If you don't do this, you're going to go blah, blah. Yeah, we need to be careful about that.
Yeah, if some parents volunteered to help and, ride on the bus to school, would we accept their help or?
You get into some circumstances there. We have to do background. I mean, there's just a lot of things that have to happen in a present day type of society where we live would make that a little difficult to do.
Can we touch just a second on masks?
Sure.
And physical education?
Right.
Are they required? Yes, I suppose.
Right.
But if the children are doing physical education activities,
right.
If they're running laps, if
right.
they're, doing the various things.
Yeah.
They're going to be really close to each other.
Right.
I understand that. So, within the 6 feet.
I would say we have some of the best physical education teachers in the state right here, and they can use a common sense approach. And that's something that they'll be talking about during in-service week. How can we implement PE in a way that makes sense in a COVID type of world? I have a feeling a lot of PE will probably be taking place outside for the most part, as long as we have weather and not 150 degrees outside in the summer of Cleveland, Tennessee, and spreading out as much as possible so that masks don't have to be worn. But you'll see that a lot of gyms these days require people in the gym to wear a mask to go exercise and do things. I think we're going to have to rely on our teachers to use a common sense approach to that. But yeah, if they're within that 6 foot distancing, or they're doing something where they're stacking cones or whatever the case may be, and they're close proximity to each other, they would have to wear those masks.
That question has been asked me.
Right.
And also, when I was teaching, there were certain situations where they had to have 2 classes at once in the gym because of number of classes, number of students, number of PE teachers, which
Right.
many elementary schools is just
Sure.
one. So you have, 50 kids in there instead of 25,
Yeah.
which is closing.
Can get close, if you look at a Ross or Yates gym, it's much smaller than Candy Creek gym, so it gets a little close. So I think, again, this common sense approach would have to be keep those numbers as low as we can, and maybe one class stays in gym, one class goes outside, or one class stays in the gym and one goes to auditorium, or things like that. We'll have to use some
I
just
know.
common sense approach, but
Creative.
that'll be some things they'll be talking about, certainly.
I'm assuming too, that the common sense approach will also be applied to the classroom teachers.
Right.
Because I'm all in favor of, the required masks, but my concern is if the teacher feels that they are then responsible for the enforcement,
Right,
their attention can be shifted from their job of teaching to being the mask.
right. And that's one of those risks we take here. But yes, I think common sense has to be part of this. We're gonna be telling the why, we're gonna be saying this is part of the dress code, but we're gonna have to rely on administrators and everybody working together on this. I wanna give as many mask breaks during the day that we can, because I know how it is. If I'm in my office alone, I'm not wearing a mask. For those watching, I'm within the blue zone up here, so I'm not wearing a mask because I'm in the distancing away from our students, our board members today in this case. So yeah, we'll have to use those common sense measures. I don't want teachers tied up doing nothing but keep your mask on, put your mask on. That doesn't accomplish
Feeling
anything.
pressured that that's an expectation.
Right,
That they'll get in trouble if somebody isn't wearing a mask or
Right.
something like that.
Yeah.
And, I think that a lot, understanding and patience and kindness,
right.
where it can be applied,
I agree.
is gonna go a long
I
way
agree.
in all of this.
I do think it's important for the adults in the room, the adults in the schools, to set the model and example for it. So we need to be wearing our mask when it's appropriate for us to wear our masks so that the students can see us and model after what we do. But I don't want it to become, that's all we do. That's certainly not the goal for
I
this.
think there'll be some peer pressure too.
Right.
I mean, if you're wearing your mask and you're a student and, little Dawn Robbins walks in and she's strutting around with no mask on, her friends are gonna pretty well tell her
Sure.
perhaps that she should.
Well, and the CDC director said recently, and again, I'm paraphrasing, but basically if Americans would wear masks for the next 6 weeks, they said this a week or so ago, then his belief was the number of COVID cases would drastically go down. Maybe we can be at 0.25 in the next 2 weeks. We may be there before school starts. I just don't know. None of us know. It may be Christmas time before we're there. But if we get to that 0.25, then we go to the strongly encouraged section. So we're trying to use a common sense approach. We're not saying masks have to necessarily be worn the whole year. But if we're still in a zone where we are now, then masks would be required.
So Dr. Dyer, do you need a motion from the board on this or vote?
I would appreciate, I think if we're gonna be making a change like we did for the last piece there, I would appreciate a motion and a vote to
Okay.
approve the wearing of masks in this as laid out.
Charlie made the motion, and second
Second.
from Tom. Okay, Julie, call roll, please.
Charlie,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Carolyn,
Yes.
Krista,
Yes.
Dawn,
Yes.
Peggy.
Yes.
Fantastic, thank you. The last update dealing with COVID comes from Mr. Taylor, and I'm gonna ask him to come forward at this time.
That's amazing.
Plexiglass shields, this is my part, I'm sorry, David, you'll come up, but you may want to bring this up too, because your guys are installing these. So we have now plexiglass shields that are gonna be going up in certain areas throughout both the AOB, that's the receptionist at the AOB, but these will also be going up in schools, at reception areas where the public may be coming in. Also, think about counselor offices, when a counselor may need to work one-on-one with a particular student. Certain special education spaces where we may need to do that, and other areas where either social distancing may not be possible because of whatever the situation is. So that is something that is being installed. I just wanted you to be aware of that, so when you walk into the AOB or a school and you see that, you're not surprised. It's very much like what you would find at Publix or at checkout counter, things like that.
Dr. These are real easy to install. It's just a little hook that goes right in there. And
Right, exactly, and that's what you see here. We had a gentleman yesterday installing at the AOB, and it took him
Yeah.
10 minutes. Just
If
moved
if
in
a
and moved out.
teacher, if a teacher requested one or asked if they could put one in their room, could they do
There,
that?
that's we start getting into a little different situation when we start getting into rooms, so we have to watch where we put them because of fire codes, because anything you hang also blocks sprinkler systems. So we get into a whole different,
But they could ask you.
they can ask us, now what we're doing in most cases, this is a situation where felt like we need to put that shield. We have desktop models. We have 50 of them that'll be in before school, and then another 100 sometime in August. And so we have desktop models that actually will go on the desk. So for the counselor's office, for instance, instead of having something like this, that large, it will sit on their desk and be a little more compact. So those are what we're gonna have most places, and then we've got some of these where we'll maybe need those in the front office, on a reception desk in the front office or something, so.
Just wanted to make you aware of that, so.
That's
okay.
great.
Now we'll go to health.
All right. It's recommended that you don't run your air conditioning on the buses. One, Cleveland City Schools is atypical in that, the fact that we have air conditioning on our buses. Most systems don't really run or carry air conditioning. So it's great. Our drivers love it. It helps us with our drivers. However, in this case, you are recirculating that air. There's no way to have good filtration with those air conditioning systems. So what they're recommending is people put the windows all the way down unless there's weather, inclement weather, and that you keep the windows down so that you get cross circulation while you're going down the road. So unfortunately, we will be running the windows
That's what we
down.
grew up with.
Yeah, now there is a front air conditioner that the drivers will still be able to help keep them a little bit cooler, but for the most part, it's gonna be old fashioned windows down for our buses, this year, starting out, until this situation helps take care of itself. Also, I brought this as show and tell. These are the filters we've been using for a couple of years. They're a medical grade filter, actually. They're what they use in the hospital. They get 99% of the particulates that come through the system. They actually would prevent the COVID droplets from going through just in the filtration. Now, the other thing we already do that we have to do in all commercial buildings is we have to do air exchange. We actually didn't have that in the east wing of the high school until our ESG upgrade. Now we have full air exchange in the east wing. So we don't have the stagnant air problem per se there we may have had at one time. But all of our school systems, we have air exchange, so we'll increase that. We already exchange the air in our classrooms about 4 times an hour. So the air in these rooms already gets, fresh air already gets brought in four times an hour, is completely exchanged. So we will make sure that that's happening everywhere, and that will help out with our situation as well. And then I think when you add that to the disinfecting that we're gonna be doing every day, I think we are gonna be in good shape and being able to do that in a reasonable, feasible and financial way to handle that. So I think we're in good shape that way. There have been some questions about UV lights, and I didn't know if you want me to address that or not.
Yeah, if you
But-
don't mind.
I know I had a councilman send me a thing on UV lights. UV lights are very good. Hospitals use them, medical establishments. There is a grant out there that will pay for about 30% of the installation. But by the time we could get the grant and have them installed, this situation would probably be over. Also, those are very expensive and they require a lot of maintenance. You have to replace the bulbs in those every 2 years. Just the bulb replacement. We have, by the way, we have 3,900 filters a year we change. We change these annually. So 3,900 filters in our system. That equates to, say probably 2,000 bulbs. And those bulbs are $100 to $200 a piece. So when you start putting the
human capital involved in changing those bulbs, the cost of the bulbs, trying to upkeep those systems, even though we may get a grant initially, trying to upkeep those systems would be a very large expense to the system that we may not benefit from when we already are doing good filtering and air exchange. So I thought I would share that with you as well when you hear about the UV lights.
That is interesting, because I've gotten that question, and, but mostly the question has been, are they expensive? Is it something we could do? And I didn't know what that answer was, so.
Yeah, they are expensive, and I'm talking with Laura Hudson, we are looking at maybe some high-risk areas. That might be something we would want to consider for areas like our clinics, if it's something we need to look at there. So if that's something we need to do there to help out in those high-risk areas where we know have sick children, that's something beyond COVID, we could probably do just through our regular maintenance budget, and we could do and keep up with just to help our teachers and our nurses when they're dealing with that. So I would look at it from that standpoint.
I'm not familiar with that research. Does the UV lights, does it kill the germ?
Yes, ma'am. The UV lights kill germs and bacteria that come through the ductwork. And so that's why and it's been proven effective extremely. But it's not necessarily something you use everywhere. They're usually used in medical establishments because the maintenance cost of them is something that's expensive.
Can they be used in vehicles like buses?
The ones that have been made for buses and all are not UL listed. They have to be covered because UV light will damage people's eyes.
Oh.
So they can only be used in places where the lights can be covered and not be seen. And again, the maintenance on them is pretty high. And I haven't seen any for buses that are actually UL listed, and we don't want to use anything that's not been tested or UL listed.
I think it'd be a good idea to have them in our clinics where we have kids that all of a sudden may develop some symptoms and we have to call the parents,
Right.
to get someplace safe, or like some of our special ed classes.
But no, I'm not very well versed on the science, but aren't they also something you would use when people aren't in the room? Like, don't hospitals use them like outside? They're not on during surgery, but after
Well, now the hospitals they have it in their ductwork as well,
Okay,
but they have some in the actual rooms that they turn on to sterilize when nobody's in the room.
right.
And because you can't be in there with it'll damage your vision,
You
so.
have to be really careful.
Yeah, so that's the situation. There's other air purifiers you're hearing about probably. I'd be glad to talk to anybody individually about, but there's a lot of things that are not proven out there. There are some things that could actually be considered. Ozone is damaging the children who have lung issues. So you have to always look at these purification things and see if they produce ozone and whether it's something you really want to take a chance on. And there's just not set standards enough to prove that some of these things should be used. So we,
Caution is advised.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We have a lot of
Careful.
situations with, so many children and adults in the buildings. One size doesn't fit all.
yes,
I'm glad to hear we've had those filters for a few years now. That's
Yeah.
good to know.
yes.
Because we do get flu and all those other good little bugs that go around our schools. So,
Right.
thank you,
Thank
Helen. Thank you. All right.
Well, that's the end of that presentation, the COVID-19 updates for today.
Is there more?
Very good. Thank you, Dr.
You're
Dyer.
welcome, thank you.
We're gonna go to the resolution and emergency solution on that
Okay.
list of policies.
Yes, TSBA has produced a board resolution, again, very much like what you passed at the end of last school year, that will be in effect for this school year if approved. The resolution is the emergency suspension of board policies 2020-21, and you can, I'm sure, have already read the whereas statements, and you've looked and see what policies those are. So unless you have questions, I will revert that back to you.
Okay, so did everyone get a chance to read all of those policies? I laughed because I thought I could just see those attorneys at TSBA going through all those policies,
Exactly.
trying to find, I'm sure they'll find more, but
They will.
this will be the ones that we can do. So I would
Right.
entertain a motion if there's no questions to approve this resolution.
I move.
Carolyn,
A second.
and Peggy, second. Okay, Julie?
Carolyn,
Yes.
Peggy,
Yes.
Krista,
Yes.
Dawn,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Charlie.
Yes.
Okay, now it's great, good job.
All right.
All right, we're gonna move to site committee, and our site committee chairman could not be here today, and so I've asked Krista to step in and be the leader of this discussion.
And I'm going to ask Hal to come forward.
Okay.
Chair.
We have,
Yeah, I like delegations, it's all good.
we do. For the site committee, we have Hal Taylor, Karen Hall, and KJ Harris from the high school are here as well. So we'll let them come in and explain. So come on up, whoever needs to come on up. You'll stand in the blue area over here. That would make sure that,
Bubble.
yes. People on the,
bubble.
There's your
if you're
bubble.
behind the blue, you can take your mask off.
Oh, praise the Lord. We've been in there in tight quarters.
Stand too close to her.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Sorry.
Good call. There you go.
All right, so we're here on behalf of the Cleveland High School Athletic Department. KJ Harris is our head coach for the softball team, and the softball team has a vision that they want to build a $150,000 hitting facility on the corner of Peerless and Raider Drive. We have met with Hal, we have met with Brian Templeton, and we are coming to you to request your permission to raise money in their endeavor. They have about $16,000 already in the bank, and they would just like to increase that. It's different phases. Phase 1 is about $74,000 in their first phase, and there's some pictures that are attached with this, but we just want you to know we would like for an eye-pleasing facility to be built for these ladies. They've got a vision, they've got parent support, and just want your endorsement to move forward with that.
Basically, the vision is that we're hoping in 4 years, we want to do it in 4 phases. It's broken down into these phases. Do they have these papers?
Yes, everything's in the documents.
So you'll see the 4 phases. Obviously, the first one is the biggest chunk of money because that's actually laying the concrete and the actual facility so that we can use it right off the bat. Yeah, right off the bat. But our hope is at the end of phase 4 that our locker rooms will be able to be moved out there because our program's growing. When I came in, we had 12 girls, and I'm sitting at 25 right now, right before tryouts. And I normally pick up a couple here and there. Our softball program is on its up and up, and we've got a lot of girls that have the potential to, they're workhorses in the classroom and they're workhorses on the softball field, and we know that softball can be a catalyst to getting them a good education. This would also set us apart from any other program in our district. I know McMinn County has a similar hitting facility, but it's not along the same lines that we would like to be able to use ours, not just for hitting, but to set up cages to where we could pull everything up and be able to actually, if it's something happened in soccer or happened to want to come in there or something like that, we would totally be up for that. And we would also like to reach out to the community because I think it's a very important thing that Cleveland needs a good foundation for a youth softball program. And that would be something that we would be able to facilitate through bringing kids in, doing fundamentals on Saturdays in the off season, but obviously being able to use it, weather permitting all the time. So we're just asking for your permission. This is a phenomenal community and we're ready to get out into it and hopefully, give these girls the best opportunity to be able to get a good education and take their abilities to the best level.
And I will say they've worked closely with Hal and like I said, Brian Templeton and everything. So everything is on the up and up and looks good. They know all the approvals have to go through operations and site committee when it comes down to it. So that part's in good shape as far as this is concerned. So I recommend approval of this.
What kind of fundraising are you looking at?
Well, right now we have a huge sign program that we just implemented in the last 2 years. That sign fundraiser brings us in about $25,000 a year. I don't know how other programs financially run, but for me, as far as in my 8 years, my 2 volunteer years and then 6 years as a head coach, I've never seen a softball program bring in that kind of money just off of our sign sales. So a huge portion of that is going to go towards the facility. But other than that, we'll go out. We've got phenomenal parents that have a lot of connections. And we're just going to hit the streets and tell them what our girls are doing and see if they would like to be a part of it. And obviously we would give them recognition in that phase.
Not gonna sell candy bars.
Our girls hate selling candy bars. We do sell cheesecakes at Thanksgiving, but.
Yeah, that's good.
No, actually, we've been able to do away with all of our extracurricular fundraisers like that just because of our sign program. So.
All right, so is there a motion?
I got, Karen, nobody loves girls' athletics more than I do, and I built that softball field, and it's like 150 for 4 years. Miss Robinson was on the school board when I came to board meeting one night and asked permission, and they said, we'll give you permission, not gonna give you any money, but we wanted to match the rest of the campus. And I was gone for a couple of weeks, and when I saw the dugouts, because Dr. Denning was pretty clear about that, the split face block and everything matching the beige color of the rest of the school. And I come back in town after a couple of weeks and the dugouts are painted blue. That was, because they were pretty clear about it. We did a good job with that because there used to be nothing but trees there. Some of you've been here in Cleveland. But when it became blue like that and didn't match the rest of the school, it wouldn't have been a good issue with Dr. Denning, I know, because you remember, y'all gave me permission to do it, and we had to raise $150,000. But the buildings need to match the rest of the school. I'm all for the building, because I was gonna put it behind the third base dugout. Dr. Denning said the road's gonna come through there for the science building. And that when they got painted blue, it stands out too much. And it should match the rest of the campus, in my opinion.
So are you saying you say the dugouts are not matching the school and you want the
Right.
building to match?
Right, and they made it pretty clear to me, I don't know if you remember, Don, or not, they said it needs to match the rest of it. And I did it exactly like I did the baseball field for Title IX. Split place block, the netting, everything to match, 200 feet, everything was good and everything, but, you're the superintendent now and everything, but it stands out a little bit.
And I'm happy to discuss that with them. We can make those
Yeah.
changes. We've done everything hand and foot that's gone out there. We put almost $25,000 into the field in the last 2 years and painting the back of the dugout. If you feel like that's something.
Well, it was an issue with the board at that time, they said you had to match the rest of the campus.
Okay.
One good thing, we talked, and one thing is that this is a big enough project that Brian Templeton, we have to have an architect by law involved with this. So with having Brian and him having done the science wing and all that being by the science wing, I think that's one good thing we can do is ask Brian to make sure that we make everything match up. And then if we need to make some changes through maintenance, we'll be glad to make some changes to help accommodate, the color scheme as well, so.
Well, I would like to agree with Charlie, because, back in the 80s and 90s, Cleveland High School and Cleveland Middle School, Cleveland Junior High at the time, were just hodgepodge mess. There was no continuity, there was nothing, it wasn't aesthetically pleasing, let me put it that way. So the goal was to get that campus to be a beautiful campus, no matter what the facility is for it. So we wanted all to, and I still feel that way, and Charlie feels that way. I don't know if the rest of you all do or not, but I think we all want that, and I'm sure you do.
Oh, absolutely.
But.
And I know you probably can't see what's gone on. You might be able to see the backstop and the windscreen as you drive down Raider Drive. Our thought process with painting the back of the dugout is because we've completely rehauled the dugouts. There's no longer bat racks, like we've actually put helmet racks in. All of that matches the back of the dugout. And
The outside don't matter, just the outside and everything.
Correct. Yes.
Some of you don't know, when we started there was nothing but pine trees there. We were out there in knee-deep mud and putting French drains in. I love it. And the parents, I know we carried the big lockers upstairs. You can imagine everything. And
Right, oh yeah.
Your process, what you got is good, because one year we had the field and the backstop. That's all we had.
Yep.
I had to let all the parents know, you need to bring your chairs, the bathrooms in the old junior high. And it took about 4 years to get it. And you can get there, but I just know it stuck out when I saw those blue dugouts on the outside. Because the board and Dr. Denning made Charlie there, we'll give you permission. We're not gonna give you a penny.
Yeah.
If you can get the money.
We
give me
don't have our hands out. We're ready to do the work.
Yeah.
I love visionary leadership, and I think our young lady students are now and in the future are gonna benefit from that, because I know it's a big undertaking you decided to do.
Absolutely.
The rest of you don't know, when we built that, I told the baseball coach this time, we're gonna have time for the girls to be in the wrestling building. That makes, But if I had one thing to do, or I would have copied those rides, because everybody took that plan and built the same field just like that. I mean, it's a first-class girls softball field.
Oh, for sure.
So with Brian Templeton involved, I think, Charlie, that might be the key.
I mean, that's just me, I just remember
No, I
directed
think
it to
you're
be
right.
pretty strong and everything, and Dr. Denning, and it does stand out.
And I know you were here when the field was built. I would love to sit down with you and talk
I've got
more
pictures
about
and
the
everything
history,
about it,
because
yeah.
I'm not a townie. I've only been here for about 9 years, and I would love to know what the history is behind it, because I know Cleveland started softball late.
Yep.
And I don't even know who built the field
Well, the
or
first
who
year
the
at
first
KJ,
coach was
At Tinsley Park, there was a little bitty field, that's where we played at the first year.
at Tinsley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, and after that, we didn't have bleachers for a long time, because I didn't have the money, but.
Yeah.
Charlie is athletic director, so he can probably sit down with you and tell you all of that.
In doing all this, we do want to honor our history, and that's what we're trying to figure out right now is what is our history.
Oh, yeah,
So,
Charlie, maybe you can.
I don't took
join in
pictures of
some
that
and-
plaque I had when they gave us for the first, I think it was early 2000, the first team or something.
So was that a motion, Charlie, that you wanted to approve the
I
plan?
want to prove it, but I think we need, I don't know, just me, I know
You want the
the
aesthetics?
board made
to-
it pretty clear that it needs to match the rest of the campus.
Okay, well, you can make
approve
that
it
your
as long as
motion.
it matches.
Huh?
You'll approve it as long as it matches.
the building will match the campus.
Okay.
So that's your motion.
Yes.
So, okay, it's to approve it, but
Got that?
with that. All right, is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Second from Peggy. Okay, Julie.
Thank y'all.
Charlie,
Yes,
Peggy? Yes. Carolyn?
Yes.
Krista?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
It's
good
all
luck
yours.
on your fundraising.
Thank you so much, appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Anytime y'all want to come out, come on, the girls would love to see you.
Lee Stewart's son,
Yeah.
Lee Stewart's son, Lee, Ryan Stewart.
Okay, Dr. Day, anything?
That is it. Thank you very much.
Well, this is
Yes.
been a long meeting, and
I've got his
I
daughter, yes.
appreciate everybody for being here, and we'll adjourn.
When is our
2 hours
next
and 10 minutes.
official?
August 3rd.
August 3rd.
And where?
Here,
And what
here,
time?
and AOB.
To be determined.
Yeah.